Hi, everybody. We are going to get started very shortly. So just hang tight. In the meantime, I'm going to launch some polls. If you could just answer them in there. And then also, if while you're waiting, go to the chat, make sure you click that you're messaging everyone and tell us where you're calling in from. It's awesome to see how far and wide you all join us from when we do these. I've done these in the past for our starting solids one-on-one. We're joined usually from like every corner of the world, not just the US. So always fun to see where you guys are calling in from. But I'm also going to launch a poll. We're curious how old your little ones are. Oops, let me, yeah. Okay. So great to see. And let's see where people are calling in from. Oh, we got everything. Michigan, New
Yeah.
Jersey, Phoenix, San Francisco. Someone's got their note taker here. Awesome. Cape Cod, South Carolina, Boston. Whoa, three Bostons. You guys should just hang out. Maybe you already are. Disney Hollywood Studios, Central PA, Wisconsin, Ohio, New York, Indiana, Delaware, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Minneapolis, New Jersey. Go Knicks is right. Go Knicks. I'm in New York. I'm in Brooklyn. So great to see everybody here. It looks like people are still trickling in, so we're gonna give it one more minute before I start jumping in and introducing Jessica. So bear with me. We'll give it one more minute as I start to see it slow down, and then a couple housekeeping things. All right. So really awesome. I'm gonna end the poll here. So just to show you guys, here are the results of the poll. You are in great company. It's good to see some of you are getting ahead of things. That's awesome. Nothing like a little parental anxiety to bring you to the table today. I get it. Potty training can be scary. And so glad to see people getting ahead and being prepared. Nothing like thank you for spending your Thursday afternoon with me and with Jessica. And then folks that I'm sure it looks like maybe are in the thick of things and looking for some moral support, which we will certainly provide today. For any of you that have joined us in the past for our Starting Solids 101, these virtual events are really meant to do one thing: bring that anxiety level from here down to here. We're all going through the same things. I'm Michael. I'm the co-founder of Lalo, and I have two little ones. I have a 6-year-old and almost 4-year-old, and there is a lot that my wife and I have struggled with in parenting and are not great at. But I will tell you, both my kids were potty trained by the time they were 26 months, and I don't have any secret to it. So I'm not here to give my wisdom. That's what Jessica's here for. But we did have success. So I'm going to bring my perspective as a dad. Luckily, a dad who we did have some solid success with potty training, but we all have our own journeys. So I'm going to bring my perspective. But today I am joined by Jessica Irwin, who is a pediatric occupational therapist, and she's also a childhood routine expert, and most important title of all, mom of two boys. So, of course, Jessica's going to bring her professional perspective. I'm sure she'll bring her real life perspective as well. And the goal here is to have a good, open conversation about all the things that you're either worrying about today because you're in the middle of potty training or getting ahead of because you're thinking about it or it's inevitable. So, we're going to jump into it. Last housekeeping item is we always save time for your questions. So, down at the bottom, there's a thing that says Q&A. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. If you put it in the chat, it's very hard. There's often chatter going on in the chat and we miss it. But if you put it in the Q&A, I can get to it. Oftentimes we get way too many questions to cover, but we'll do our best. And then my absolute last, I have to say this, is nothing we share here today is medical advice. If there's any real medical advice that you are seeking, please, please, please reach out to your pediatrician. Turn to them for medical advice. We're here to give you a little bit of hope and bring down that anxiety. That potty training is not always the easiest, it's not always the cleanest, but you will get through it. You will get through it. And we're going to help you in that journey. So, Jessica, thank you again for joining us and having this conversation with me.
Yes, I'm so excited.
All right. All right. So jumping right in, is there anything in your background, your credentials that I missed that is worth laying out to everybody?
Sure. So my background's in pediatric OT, that stands for occupational therapy. And I worked in lots of different pediatric settings. And I will say that one of the most common threads in all of them was questions about potty training. And that, in terms of my background and career, was what made me want to dive into this topic further and seek out like further education and training and experience. And so that's kind of what brought me here. I consider it my area of specialty. And I also want to say to all the parents here, this might be anecdotal because I do work with parents who have questions about potty training, but I do think it's one of the most anxiety provoking, like stressful phases of early parenthood. I really believe that. And so if you're here, I'm going to help you. And as Michael said, we want to kind of lower the stress and make you guys feel a little more confident.
Awesome. Okay. I think with a lot of the world of parenting on the internet, it feels like oftentimes like there are playbooks. You got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. And that level, that like brings the anxiety level up, right? Different competing methodologies and philosophies about how to go about things. I know as we were getting to potty train, we heard about this 3 day method and you're going to be done in 3 days. We didn't do that, just to be clear. But can you talk a little bit about like your general philosophy around potty training and if the 3 day thing that's out there is really a thing?
Yeah, totally. So, in terms of my philosophy and like what I know is true based on the minimal evidence we have, because I just want to say, like, there's not a lot of studies that can be done on potty training because of a variety of factors. It's difficult to create studies, but we do have some research and evidence. And then I've also just worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of families through it. So overall, what I want to tell you is that this is like kind of common sense, but like every kid is really different. And so the hardest thing is like comparing, wanting to compare your kid to your friend's kid or your neighbor or the kid you see on the internet or even a sibling. Like if you have an older child and it went one way, it might not go the same way with the younger one. Um, and ultimately, the other thing I want you to know is that potty training is not just like the 2 or 3 days or the weekend you choose to attempt to go at it for the first time. I like to think of potty training as a much wider phase, starting from you're just simply introducing the idea of the potty, you're showing them what it's for, you're exposing them to it, all the way through that weekend that maybe you do, all the way through kind of re entering real life and like figuring it out after the fact. How do you go back to school? How do you do errands? How do you go on an airplane? Like there's lots of things that are involved once you get your child out of diapers. And so the phase is a lot longer than 3 days. And I think we get
Yep.
sold like a lie that it's just 3 days and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe it needs to be called like bathroom integration, right? Like we're
Yeah.
integrating this new thing into kids' lives that like this doesn't happen here anymore. It happens there, and we're introducing, and
Mhm.
it's like everything else. We're doing things with these kids for the first time. Like until that point, they like didn't know that that was something they use. It's just for mommy or daddy or whoever, right? So I like that perspective. Is there like a physical component to potty training, or is it just a routine thing? Like, is like, can you talk to me about like the actual like what's going on in the body part
Mhm.
versus just the routine part of it?
Yes, for sure. That's actually like something I love to talk about, and I can like nerd out on the science behind it. I'll try not to get too wordy. But essentially, when we talk about potty training, right? The definition of that, it's helpful to think about like, okay, what's the end goal? Like the end goal is not only a child who will physically let their pee and poop out in the potty when you sit them there, but it's actually that their brain will be able to stop and recognize that they have the internal feeling and urge that they have to go, and then be able to A, communicate that to you in some way, and B, get themselves to the bathroom in time and let it out there. So it's actually like a complicated physiological process. Um, I think if we go back to the first thing that's really important to know about like physiological readiness and what's happening in the body is that as a child gets closer, on average, closer to age 2-ish, but that could be a range. They have their bladder like has the ability to actually hold their urine for a little bit longer periods of time, and that's really important. If you think about like a young baby, like a newborn or an infant, they are urinating quite frequently with smaller amounts. And it starts to consolidate as they get closer to toddlerhood. So that would be like the first physiological piece that's really important. If a child can't consolidate their pees a little bit, um, it's going to be really hard to be able to like feel the urge, wait in time, and go. So that's where we start. And then the other piece that I kind of talked about right at the beginning of this answer was the ability to recognize that urge. That's a physiological skill. It's actually considered a sensory skill called interoception. That word, interoception, means the ability to recognize your internal body signals and feelings, things like feeling hungry, feeling thirsty, and feeling like you have to pee or poop, being able to recognize that and know what that means, and then being able to take action like, oh, I'm hungry.
Mhm.
I want to eat. I'm thirsty. I need a drink. I have to pee. I'm going to hold it and go to the bathroom. That's a skill that some kids um, naturally kind of develop more easily, and others need a little bit more explicit practice and teaching on. Um, so I work on that with families a lot.
Yeah. So so basically part of the readiness part is actually about growth. Like your body needs to grow into being ready, it sounds like. Are there any other key moments or signals of readiness that come from the child?
Yes, good question. And I also just want to mention that some people are probably going to bring this up and they're like, well, my 8 month old was potty trained because we did something called elimination communication. That is something that exists. That basically means you're holding your baby over a bucket and they're peeing into it. That's not what I teach. I believe that's an amazing option. It's not practical for many families. So, but I did want to acknowledge that. But going back to your question, yes. So for the child, not only consolidating their pees, basically being able to hold it, like holding their urine for 1 to 2 hours at a time. So they're not just like urinating every couple minutes is one key skill. And then the others that we like to look out for is being able to follow simple directions, just like as their toddler brain grows a little bit. That doesn't mean they always will follow the directions, but like have the ability to, like they understand what you're telling them to do, and
Yeah.
you know they understand your language. So that's a big one to look out for. And then in terms of the actual like potty diaper situation, starting to show you that they're aware that they've pooped or peed. So maybe they like pulling at their diaper or they're telling you I pooped. And then hiding to poop is another one that we see often, right? Your toddlers will start to like go into the corner. That's a very like innate human mammal characteristic. And then the last one is like some of them will really start to show interest. They'll follow you into the bathroom. They'll be curious about the toilet. They want to flush it. They want to watch you go. Those are all good signs that your child's starting to show readiness.
Awesome. I loved your the caveat on listening, following instructions. I think a very important caveat for anybody with a toddler or who've raised toddlers. Uh, Following instructions is never an always on thing. Okay, so that's child readiness. I feel like we've already addressed the anxiety around potty training. So I feel a part of readiness has to be like parental readiness as well. How do you think about
Mhm.
that? Like talking to parents in a sense that like, oh, you guys are ready, like you're ready for this
Yeah,
change in your life and taking on this.
totally. So the way I think about that is two things. One, all of the kind of introduction to the potty, building awareness, showing them what it's for, that can kind of be I consider that like the prep phase. That can kind of happen fairly early on, and you can be kind of in that phase for a while without you as the parent feeling like I'm ready, right? You're just kind of like slowly introducing the idea. You're getting a little potty. You're having them like practice sitting on it. You're reading books about it. You're talking about it. That can be a kind of ongoing phase for, honestly, some people are in that phase for over a year, depending on when they really start. But when it comes to like, okay, a parent being like, I actually want to like dive in, and we consider that the act of starting to take away the diaper, right? And expect them to really pee and poop in their potty and not in a diaper while they're awake. So that switch for parents, I think about the main thing is that you ideally, it's not always possible, but ideally you want to time that separate from any large life changes that your family or your child might be going through. So I always recommend, okay, if you really do feel like, okay, I want to dive into potty training at this date, think about, okay, we're not having a new baby within the maybe month or two surrounding that date. That's a big one that comes up.
Yeah.
My toddler's not like starting at a brand new school right around then. We're not moving.
Yeah.
We like things like that. Because the whole idea there is that changes are a lot for toddlers, and potty training, like expecting them to use the potty, is a big change. So we ideally want to separate it out from other big life changes if
Yep.
possible.
Yep.
And then I think the last thing is just there does take a level of commitment on the parent side, right? So once you decide, I'm going to set this new expectation, we're not wearing a diaper anymore during the day. Pee and poop goes in the potty. I'm going to help you through it. And that can be jump started with the 3 day weekend.
Yeah.
You do have to be ready to like hold that expectation. So I think
Yeah.
there is some level of like, if I'm like feeling totally stretched thin as a mom or a dad, I just can't imagine one more thing on my plate. That's probably not the best time to dive in. Um,
Yeah.
but life
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I feel that. Like at some point, there's no good time, right?
Mhm.
At some point, you're going to have to take the leap of faith. I find that there's one other part of parental readiness, which is maybe slightly more emotional, which is this holding on to your baby. And
Mm,
through these transitions, these big moments of like, if my baby's not in, like we had with my son, like cutting his hair, like it was just like this, he's got beautiful long curly hair. And it's like, it's hard, it's just holding on to that last bit of babiness. And like maybe
mhm,
this one's a little bit more subconscious, or unconscious, but like it's buried there. Like there's this knowing that like if we graduate from this stage, becoming less and less a baby. And I think that there's probably still ways to hold on to that my baby feeling that we all cherish. Um, and they're still gonna be there to hopefully at least 80% of the time they're delicious self. Anybody with a potty training age kid like has a period of time they are not delicious. We all know that. So I think that's like the emotional side of it. Maybe that's my parent side thinking a little bit of like it's okay, like they're still gonna be my baby even when we get past here, and I'm gonna have one less expense hopefully soon because I'm not gonna have to pay diapers, one less mess. Um, and so there's still mess. Like potty training is still a thing, right? Like my son's new thing is he wakes up, he's 3.5. He'll wake up at 6 in the morning sometimes, having to poop, but he doesn't
mhm.
wipe himself. So like I keep every time I hear at 6 in the morning, Daddy, come wipe. I think of Big Daddy. I can wipe my own ass. I can wipe my own ass, and I'm like praying for that scene to recreate itself in my life. Um,
Well, we can
so
talk about that because wiping to poop is developmentally, it's like one of the last
last thing, yeah,
skills
yeah.
for potty training, and so you were probably have to wipe their butt for a while, unfortunately.
100%. And for anybody that has a bidet in their house, I don't recommend trying that with a child unless you want to flood. Okay, moving on. Moving on. Sorry,
It's funny.
got a little distracted there. Okay,
Can I just say, can I make a
yeah,
comment on? So I just want to mention age briefly because that's a
sure.
question I get all the time. Like, oh, well, when should we do it? What's the best age? Um, and in terms of the like my baby thing too, like,
Yeah,
so I think there's this, I don't know why. I think this is across a lot of parenting topics on social media, but everybody always thinks the earlier you do something, the better. Like that's just like goes for like milestones or crawling or
yeah,
walking. Like I just feel like that's just like our maybe it's a very American thing, like a very like
yeah.
US earlier the
Controlling.
better. Um, that's not necessarily true for potty training. And what's actually fascinating about the little research we do have is that they do find that the earlier you start, the longer the entire process takes you. The later you start up to a certain point, the shorter the entire process takes you on average, not for every child. And when I say earlier, we usually mean like before 2 or very close to 2. And when I say later, we usually mean closer to 3. That would be average ages. So there's really no rush. I mean, I
Yeah,
think for some, they're like, I just want to be done out of diapers. I totally get that. Others are like, my baby, they're only 2 and we're not quite ready yet. Don't feel
Totally.
bad about that.
No.
Um,
So I think for us, like my daughter was, I think like 18 or 19 months. My daughter was always very, very verbal early on
yeah.
and very competent as in a certain way. And so she she was quote unquote ready and she did it. And we also were pregnant with our second, and it was like, okay, it would be great if we didn't have two in diapers.
Before, yeah. Uh-huh.
And it wasn't, but it wasn't right against that change. It was still some time away. And
Uh-huh.
then and that was great. And she was out and and done super young. So when my son came around, we were like, oh, like let's get on this. And we actually started and stopped and then started again because he
Uh-huh.
was ready. And there was some resistance, and we didn't want to create like a bad association with the potty. And so like
Yeah.
after a day, we just like we're like, no, he like this isn't right. Because we had seen what was right. Like we've experienced it. So for those
Yeah.
first time parents, like that association matters a lot. It's like, it's the same thing of like when we talk about our starting solid stuff, we often give it, talk about the advice with our expert there of like, try not to like go crazy wiping your kid in their high chair, because if they get fussy and stuff, then they're going to have that association with their high chair. And like, then they may not want to get in their high chair, things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great. So those associations, but totally different experience, different age, and two different kids, both on the earlier side. But that was what was right for us, not because it was we were holding ourselves to a certain standard. Okay,
Hmm.
I want to talk about mistakes, but I'm putting quotes around that on purpose because, like, in parenthood, we don't do anything wrong. We just learn, right? And
Hmm.
no one's perfect, and there is not a playbook. But are there certain things you see parents do in their approach to potty training that you'd maybe warn against if you haven't started yet? Like, it would put you down a not a great path, or lead to like maybe elongated period of success, finding success.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the first one kind of starting around that like prep phase when you're kind of just starting to introduce the idea of the potty. Um, First of all, there's this one misconception out there that some people think is that you should not introduce a potty until you're basically like expecting them to go in it. I don't agree with that. I believe that showing a young child what something is, a brand new thing they've never seen before, is actually really important before you're putting any pressure on them, especially when it comes to their physical body, a very like private part of their body is expected to perform on that thing. So I do recommend you get a potty, put it out in the bathroom, have them play around on it. That's a good thing. So don't get stuck in thinking like, oh, they're going to get confused. They can fully be in diapers and they're still becoming aware of the potty. So that's one. And then kind of piggybacking off that is I think this happens again in a lot of realms of parenting, but when you as a parent do feel anxious about something, and I get it, like it's valid to feel like, oh, this is a lot. We often end up putting pressure on our child, like without even thinking about it or knowing we're doing it. So one thing I will see parents do is try to get them to pee or poop in their potty, especially if it's like the earlier stages. They're trying to do all these things to like get them to go. Um, and almost like getting ahead of yourself of like, oh, they're not going, they're not peeing or pooping. Like, what's going on? So I think like just take a step back and like think like, okay, any exposure and practice is good exposure and practice. And like anything, our job is to set up kind of the environment and the routines around something and introduce it in a very like matter of fact kind of fun playful way rather than like all this pressure to do
Yeah.
it because they're
Yeah.
not going to too a toddler's not going to want to do something that you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
Like
I would say the mistake or the trap we fell into that we realized at some point was to your point of like you're learning the cue, or they're learning the cue in their body. That's not
mhm,
innate. I guess it's innate in some way to get to that point, but it's not right away. They have to feel it,
it's not.
right?
Yeah.
And so not asking, like we were often asking, do you need to go potty? And they don't know.
Uh-huh.
Like
They
the
don't
answer,
know.
like, and every single time until we realized this, it was like, no. And then 5 minutes later, an accident.
Yep.
And instead of we've arrived at a new place, we're going potty. We're leaving this place, we're going potty. So it's built into just the routine and then like that's what we realize like it's like the telling versus asking. Like this doesn't need to be like a
Yes.
baby-led thing. It can be a parent-led thing to a degree. Because we know we're adults. We know that like before you get in the car for a road trip, you go to the bathroom. You don't ask if you need to go to the
Yes.
bathroom to a
Like
toddler.
same with us. I mean,
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah.
Yeah, and toddlers are toddlers are going to say no to anything you ask them, not just the potty. Like you know that, right? Like
Yeah.
so a yes no question, especially if you as a parent want them to try, as you said, within the routine,
Yeah.
or you can literally see signs in their body that they have to go. That's when you also can add something in that I'll say to kind of help them build that skill of knowing if they have to, which is call out what you see. Like, oh, your body's wiggling around. That means you have to go pee. Or you're crossing your legs. That means you have to poop or whatever.
Yeah.
Link what you see
Build a
to the
connection.
feeling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This has been awesome. I want to get to everybody's questions now so we have time to get through as much as possible. If I miss your question or don't address it directly, it's probably because we've already talked through it and we're gonna limited by time. So I want to make sure we get to as much as possible. Um, to that point, how like is there anything you can do to help other than calling out the signs to help identify the potty or poop feeling? Is there anything this is
Yeah. So, other than calling out the signs that you're seeing in them, the other big thing that you can do is start to basically announce and narrate out loud when it's going on in your own body. So, it's like you're kind of like think of like yourself as like a sports announcer, a radio
yeah,
broadcaster. You're like replaying out loud what you're feeling. Sounds kind of silly, but you're just in your living room and you're like, oh, I feel down there in my tummy that I have to go pee. There's pee ready to come out. I'm going to go to the bathroom and let it out.
yeah.
So they hear the thought process behind it. That's the most important one. And you can start doing that pretty young, even before they're using the potty themselves.
Right. Right.
Same with poop.
Cool. All right. Next question here. My 3 and a half girl has been potty trained for a year. 99% of the time she's great, but she will very, very occasionally have a full-blown accident, which upsets her. Is this normal? How can I help calm her down when this happens?
Hmm. Good question. So I'm curious if it's pee or poop, but
Sounds like
either
poop to
way,
me. Yeah.
yeah, it's probably poop. So one thing I want to mention about poop is we haven't talked about it super specifically, but poop, it's very, very normal. Almost all kids, not all, but almost all take a little bit longer to figure out poop than they do pee on the potty. And accidents can linger with poop longer as well. So for this specific scenario, the first part of it was, is this normal? It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know her exactly, but I think one thing I would ask you back is to think about, is there like a pattern to when this happens? Does this tend to happen when she's like deep in play or in the car or I don't know, something specific? That
Yeah.
would be a good thing to talk to like think of. And then if you do feel like there's a pattern or there's some reason why she's having the accident, one great thing, especially at this age, like a little older, 3.5, is to do something to do some role play outside of the actual situation. Basically, practice going through what you would want her to do before the accident
Yeah.
or during, right? So practice like, oh, if you're playing with your stuffies and you feel that feeling, you have to stop and tell me you have to go. And then in terms of the second part, I think was how to calm her down during it. Um, that's an even bigger topic of like calming down overall, because I think that this could be related to an accident or totally something else that upsets her. But you can oftentimes saying less in the moment at this age during like a huge tantrum or meltdown or upset is better. So I would say use your kind of physical comfort, but try not to like rationalize with her in the moment. Her brain is not going to be on to hear you if she's super elevated in her emotions. But then talk about it after and try to keep your voice like super, I like to say like matter of fact. So we're not like putting judgment on anything. We're just kind of narrating what happened and then tell her what she can do differently next time.
Awesome. All right. Next, so we'll try to get to at least 3 more questions here. Any tips for training 2 under 2?
Hmm. Um, so I get asked about twins a lot. So this is like different than that, but it's basically like, I'm not sure if you're asking training two at the same time or if you have a 2-year-old you want to train and you have a new baby. Um, Either way, it's possible. It's definitely harder if you, as the parent, especially if you're by yourself and you have two young children who need you, right? Um, then kind of going back to that readiness thing, I would think about like, do you feel like you have the capacity to even undertake this officially yet? I don't really think there's any rush. If you have two under two, that means they're under two, which means I would say maybe just wait a little bit, but you can start the prep stuff for sure. And then just be prepared that like it's probably going to be hard, but it's not impossible. I just worked with a family who was potty training their 24-month-old and they had like a 3-month-old at home, I think. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that helped.
Very helpful. Okay. I see a bunch of questions here about this. So can you talk a little bit about night training? Like
Yes.
when it start, does it happen the same time, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes. Great question. I get this one all the time, and I'm actually very passionate about dispelling myths around this. Um, so, night training, the ability for a child to either stay dry all night or wake themselves up and go to the bathroom if they have to go, is really a physiologically hormone driven skill in the child's body. And it's really not something that I recommend you try to actively train them to do. So I do not recommend waking your child at night. There are unique scenarios where that actually is appropriate, but by and large, for the average child, especially if they're younger, so like 2, 3, I don't recommend you worry about night training at all, really. There's lots of factors that go into it. It's also there's a genetic component as well to when a child basically reaches the maturation, like physiologically, to be able to hold it or wake themselves up. Um, However, there does come a point, I would say closer to 4, even 5, some kids a little bit older, especially boys, where if they're not already kind of doing it on their own, like if they essentially haven't figured out on their own, there's little things we can do to kind of like help get them to be dry at night and to practice. Um, but I do rarely recommend you wake your child at night to pee. I think that's advice given by some experts. But I'm in the camp that I would not sacrifice sleep for this. And know that it can just take some time. Some kids will start waking up dry in the morning, and you're like, oh, you don't need your pull up anymore. Great. Other kids will kind of wake up wet until you essentially do a couple nights of a trial without the pull up, um, and do a couple other little things in your routine to like make sure they're peeing during the day and not drinking too much at bedtime. And then they'll get there. So it's a unique case by case situation, but I'm in the camp of like, don't rush. You don't need to rush it. Um,
Yeah. Cool.
and sleep is everything
All right.
as a parent.
Yeah, totally. Okay. We'll try these last three kind of rapid fire and then we're gonna wrap things up. The first is yeah, I'm just summarizing because we got a bunch of questions, similar things. Kids
Okay.
that are afraid of pooping in the potty or poop is really difficult. Anything to help get over
Yes. Okay. I have tons of blog posts on this on my website if you're like, I need more and she didn't talk about it enough. But first of all, normalize it and talk neutrally about it. Poop. So if you're accidentally being like, ooh, stinky poop, yucky, like they're gonna think it's gross.
Yeah.
And then also there's a couple specific poop books that I really like to start teaching them about poop specifically. Um, so start reading poop books and talk openly about it. And then the other thing you can do is start putting their poop, if possible, dump their poop from their diaper into the toilet and have them watch you do that. So they see, oh, this is what my poop looks like. And here it goes in the toilet. And now I'm going to help
Yeah.
flush it to get the idea started.
Okay. Second one, I have a boy, you got two boys. Tips for
Mm-hmm.
standing pee.
Okay. Don't rush it. Like I recommend you teach your boy to sit at first, because standing pee is very messy and hard for them to learn. So start sitting and then eventually you'll transition to standing. if there's a male caregiver in the home, honestly, I'm like, you're the one. You teach
That
this.
was, yeah, so my advice is actually the opposite of yours, but it's not professionally,
Okay.
it's personally grounded, and I'm the male in the house, and I just, it was my job. That was my job.
Yeah.
But sitting pee was a mess. All pee was a mess.
Because you got to point it down when
Pointing
they're
down was
sitting.
hard. Pointing down was hard. Our potty that we just came out with has a pretty good splash guard, and that's one of the things people
Yeah.
think great reviews about. But we did a lot of standing on my feet and helping point to start until he
Mm,
pointed himself. And so
cool.
that was a tip we got. And as much as possible, whenever there was a kid's urinal in a public bathroom, on my
Have
feet,
them prep.
kid's urinal, practicing there, and
Hmm.
then he
Hmm.
practiced his own name. Okay.
And other people like they put a Cheerio in the water and say like aim for the Cheerio. So at least there's like
Like
a
that one.
visual.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, last question. What is your philosophy on rewards? Best reward you
Mm,
can give.
okay. So my general philosophy is that you don't need to use rewards and you don't need to start with them. Um, but if you do, it's okay. Like you can use an M&M, a chocolate chip, a raisin, whatever. But I generally recommend you actually don't start with them because I think they're actually better utilized if you run into issues and like if you run into any ongoing issues, then creating a really specific reward system is better. So then it's like, okay, let's say we're having accidents. Now I'm going to reward dry underwear. Or, oh, now I'm not pooping in the potty. Now I'm going to create some system where there's a reward for trying to poop in the potty, like sitting to try. So then you can
Yeah.
really target it to like what you're struggling with. That's my general philosophy.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that philosophy. And actually, we did a survey of thousands of parents on their, like how they approach potty training. And actually, the
mhm.
number one reported successful tip or successful reward was actually verbal praise.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Kids just want to feel like they,
Or like a high five. Like,
love, high fives and hugs, and you're doing a great job. And that verbal praise actually was by real parents, but kind of surveyed. Was the number one thing. But that's actually a great
cool.
segue because as part of all of our, June is kind of potty training month. A lot of parents
Hmm.
start, over 40% of parents start potty training in the summer because it's warmer out. And we actually a week and a half ago launched a potty training app. It's called Potty Time
Yes.
from Lalo. It's in the iOS App Store. Right now, it's only available for our Apple users, but it's an app that can help you track your progress. One of the most reported favorite features is that there's kid mode. So it's kind of that self-reward. They get to tap on the screen themselves that they did the thing and get us, and it pops up with an animation of a star, and you can create your own rewards. So if you do use rewards, you can track your progress to that reward. We also have some rewards for you. So as you go and hit certain milestones, we'll reward you as well. And then there's, if you can't have Jessica on speed dial, you can of course you should read all her content and follow her. But we have the next best thing, which is Patty, our AI potty training coach. So if it's middle of the night, middle of the day, you run an issue, you can message Patty and you'll get practical judgment-free advice on potty training right within the app. We also are about to launch the new release of it, which will have the ability to train two kids at the same time, so different kid profiles. But it's awesome. I would highly recommend you do. It's just a way to keep yourself motivated and on top of it. But my hope is that you also delete it. My hope is that you get to a
Yeah.
point where you can delete the app. So
Yeah.
I hope you download it and then I hope you delete it. But Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and hearing all your tips. Hopefully, everybody felt like we brought your anxiety from here to here today. Always our goal. And please follow Jessica. You want to just share your Instagram handle so people and TikTok or whatever, so people know where to
Yeah.
find you.
I'll put it in the chat now, but it's Rooted in Routine. That's the name of my business. So follow me on Instagram. That's also my website, rootedinroutine.com. And I have all my potty training blog posts and like articles are also linked there. So check that out and send me a DM if you have more questions. I'm happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jessica. Have a good
Thank
week.
you.
Bye bye.